Welcome everyone. I have Harish Perry here. This is the second installment of this identity series, and I love chatting with him. He's a marketer, but he's a product person at heart, and gets into a lot of details. So he covers about 30,000 feet as well as three inches level. So I love chatting with him. So welcome Harish.
Glad
So
to be
today
back. Yeah.
So today what we'll cover is we'll cover three segments. The first segment is this whole platformization, consolidation in identity, and I'll just touch on like Palo Alto Networks acquired CyberArk. They went and said this is the next platform, and the reason they acquired CyberArk because they really wanted the whole platform. They wanted IGA, they wanted PAM, they wanted IAM, right? And they didn't think that they could have or should have acquired maybe a best of breed IGA like a Savient or a SailPoint, but they chose to acquire the whole the whole company. So just let's just start with that. And I know
Yeah.
also doing a lot in the IGA PAM space. So would love to just hear on what's going on there.
Yeah, look, I think so, I'm glad that the word platformization, even though it's kind of a made up word, I'm glad it's a word that's prevalent in our broader cybersecurity industry. Um, we can say what we want, but ultimately, like we got to listen to our customers. We got to listen to the CISOs that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And there's one thing that we hear that's very clear, which is they want the right combination of platforms and choice. So they don't what they don't want is actually the one vendor, the one ring basically to rule them all, to cover every cybersecurity use case. So if you look at the big pillars, network, endpoint, cloud, data, identity, very few of these customers, especially on the hardcore cyber folks, are saying, I want one guy to do everything for me. Because what they're looking for is optionality in their stack. The more you invest in one single player, the more holes you have from a threat perspective, right? It's like a Swiss cheese analogy where you need a defense in depth, and you need different a layered defense strategy versus putting all your eggs in one basket. What we are hearing is within each of those big pillars, there's more openness to say, okay, is there one vendor that can do a really good job in your domain? So domain specific platformization, that we're seeing a lot of receptiveness to. So who's the dominant player in identity security, right? I mean, of course, I'm biased. Who's the dominant player in endpoint? Who's the dominant player in network? Who's the dominant player in cloud, right? The obvious suspects names come to mind: Zscaler, Palo, Crowd, and then us on the identity security side. And that's the lane that we chose 16 years ago is the lane we're staying in. The other thing about platformization is it's like we hear this from every single customer. Don't do platformization just as a way to do financial engineering. So if you're going to do it to say, hey, I acquired a bunch of stuff and I'm going to bolt it on and I can, mash all this up into some bottom line discounting and it's a, 5-year enterprise license, all you can eat agreement, even though you're not going to use half this tooling, that's not what platformization should be. And that's what we're hearing from our customers. Like, if this is just a sales gimmick, don't do it. If you actually are building a true platform for the domain that does a couple of things that basically can cover all different threat vectors, that can do alerting but also real-time action and remediation in real time, that can integrate to every application, resource, cloud workload, and AI agent out there in a way that makes life easier for my IT teams from a configuration administration perspective. If that's what you mean by platformization, go for it, right? So I think it's a big word. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but like we always are like love our customers, do what's right for them, listen to them. What they're saying is if you can cover all the identity security use cases in a combined way, go for it. So that's what's governing our strategy. And I'm not one to speak ill of, we're all friends in this business across the board. I mean, everyone's going to do what they do, but our approach is we're staying in identity security. We have, and I can explain our deeper strategy in a second if you want, but like there's like multiple levels to how we're thinking about and actually building the kind of the be all end all identity security platform. So it's a big word to close it out, but you got to really make sure you're getting it precise and doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think you're right. Palo buying them right now, it's buying revenue and financial engineering and they have to go to market, right? I think
Yeah.
we
No, there's nothing wrong. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. That's at a certain
Yeah, but I think it's
scale
the
that,
same problem that they face with cloud security, right? Like,
yeah,
CyberArk, they acquired three or four different companies to put
yeah,
together that platform, right? And I feel like they were actually integrating it, but I think I felt like Palanda should have actually waited like 1 or 2 years to let them integrate it, and they also could have bought it like much cheaper in 1 or 2 years.
yeah. I mean, it's at the same time, right? The there's never been a better time to be in our business, especially identity security. Why? Because a new identity, I like to refer to the new identity has entered the chat, and that identity's name is AI agents. And it's like a real risk. I know we're going to touch on that in a second, but the pressure is real, the heat is real, the demand from customers is real. Every single customer, even in our install base, they're like, hey, we're deploying agents left and right. We have thousands of agents in production. We need you to help us secure them. I'm sure those guys are hearing the same from their customers. So the heat is real. And so I can understand the urgency for action.
Got it. And let's just touch upon the same topic, right? I think we were chatting a bit before we started recording, right? So there
Hmm.
is, pure orchestration of identity initially, and then there's runtime, and then there's eventual enforcement, right? The whole problem
Yeah,
with identity is like, if I'm doing what I'm doing, nothing needs to change, right? The whole problem is like when somebody is doing, or is there a hacker in the network, right? So can you talk
yeah,
about, like, I think Okta started very much on the orchestration side and have
of
expanded
course.
quite a bit on the IDDR side. You acquired, Spera and now
Hmm.
Atlassian.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a simple way to think about this. We have some pretty strong conviction and some very good customer evidence that it's actually time for a new category. So, I spend a lot of time with all of my friends in the analyst community, all the big analysts on the industry analyst side. That world was defined by very distinct categories. IGA, PAM, IAM, ITDR, more recently ISPM. You talk about SSPM. Those are all convenient categories, like to put on paper and to bucket vendors. But when we actually ask customers what they want, even if you look at IGA, no customer is asking for 50,000 checkbox features just to feel good about they have every feature under the sun for IGA. Even in PAM, they're not looking for 50,000 checkbox features. What they're looking for is do I know what's happening on the human side? Do I know what's happening with the user from the minute they join my company to the minute they get provisioned to the applications, the resources, the databases within my company, then to their access patterns and how they're actually accessing the data, to the privilege tokens that they may be getting to get that access to the point then they leave the company. Each of those, there's a potential breach point. Because what you wrote about this and what we're the most common attack vector is basically identity is social engineering. So phishing leading to social engineering, then leading to a token theft, which to then leads to privilege escalation. It's all identity stuff. So what our customers are saying, it doesn't matter if I have the most beautiful IGA application. If that IGA application is not able to flag an alert to the access side of the shop in case there's a potential violation, and if that access side of the shop is not able to universally log out maybe a potentially breached user in real time, it doesn't matter. Same thing with privileged access. If I'm detecting an access into, let's say, a Linux shell somewhere that should not be coming from a specific device or is using a token that is expired or is tied to someone that has left the company, can you immediately catch that and kill that token? So the number one ask from every customer that we have is alerts are fine, but can you kill the session? So we created single sign-on. The thing that we see as this new category, we're calling it identity security fabric. It's really, can you do single sign out? It's just as important as single sign on. And for single sign out to work, we call that universal logout. You need access to talk to governance, to talk to PAM, to talk to ISPM, to talk to ITDR, right? Like it's all connected. So if you come to posture management, there's a lot of really phenomenal startups. We obviously acquired Sparrow. Love those guys. They're really brilliant guys. Like it's the UX is fantastic. You can see all of your identity risks in one place, misconfigurations, orphaned accounts, leavers that have left the company that have access long after. So seeing it is nice. You got to do something about it. So the beauty of having single Okta platform is from ISPM, you can trigger an action directly within governance to then trigger access certification, or you can trigger universal logout. The interplay of all the applications, that's the magic. And that's not something that you can buy your way into. You can buy stuff, but you very quickly have to re-embed it back into the platform. And so, so zooming out to the 30,000 level for a second, when we talk about every company needs an identity security fabric, what we really mean is they need an architecture that essentially covers every identity type. So employee, partner, contractor, supplier,
Machine.
service account, machine, and AI agent. But then it supports every identity use case: IAM, IGA, PAM, ITDR, ISPM. And then it does this for every resource in the company. So what that means is every app, every workload, every container, every database, every on-prem, every Kubernetes, whatever, and that stuff, you can't just like build it. That's what quietly we've been building integrations for the last 16 years, because you need that depth of integration. So then you get the fabric that stretches across the whole company, and then you get that single control plane. And that's why I get down to like we're experts in this space. We're not going to say we're experts in like what CrowdStrike does. Good for them. They're phenomenal at what they do. But it took us a long time to get this expertise, and we're going to stay in this lane. And that's why our customers are saying, good, you're great in identity security. We have another vendor for endpoint or another vendor for network. Can you guys work together? But we need that domain specific platformization. So the I think the just to repeat, like you got to integrate everything, you got to orchestrate everything, you got to listen to is there bad behavior happening. But the most important, the piece de resistance, is you have to log people, kill the sessions.
Yeah.
And so the last point I'll make is there's been a couple of attacks recently where there was, it's OAuth consent phishing, that basically like they used a real OAuth screen to get credentials to then break in and then get tokens. Okay, you get the token, but how do you like the if you detect that the token is breached, what do? Well, you need a system, a platform that can detect anywhere that token is logged in and kill it right away. Then it's useless for hackers. So that's why like we have a lot of conviction in this identity security fabric architecture. And the Okta platform basically is that. It's the realization of that architecture.
Got it. Let's switch gears a bit, right? So,
Yeah.
one of the topic is always like, AI for security, security for AI. So let us flip that into AI for identity and identity for AI, right? There's a lot of use cases of AI in security. You see a lot of this AI SOC, L1, L2. There's a lot of use case in application security, product security, pen testing,
Mhm.
right? I feel like I think AI and identity is not talked about a lot, and maybe that's a hint for you guys to go do some marketing on the real use cases of AI. So would
Yeah.
just like to hear your perspectives on how
Yeah.
you have looked at it.
Yeah, I think well, it's kind of like what this has already been happening, and maybe it's been happening behind the scenes. So, last year we talked about this thing, Okta AI. Okta AI is this whole construct of it's an enabling technology that feeds all of our applications. So, but it's really like machine learning stuff to basically say, for example, because we have this huge customer network, because we're integrated into so many different applications in an anonymous way, we're able to say, okay, if you're about to onboard a new application into your enterprise, what are the right access policies that you want to configure? We have capabilities like it's called governance analyzer, right? We have another capability called policy recommender. Those are just like built right into Okta Identity Governance and acts like it's already built into and it just shows up on the side. Like, hey, if you're going to set up Google Workspace based on other companies that look like you, here's the list of all the recommended policy configurations and different user types. And that's there. Like we've had that for more than a year. And it's nice. It's a nice thing. It helps our customers do their job quicker. Um, we're like similarly like a more powerful use for Okta AI is actually when I described the universal logout stuff. That's all based on listening to risk signals, and then we have internal models that say, okay, has it reached a threshold of enough risk where we can actually take an action to universally log somebody out or execute a different policy, right? So that's been there for more than a year. And in a sense, it's kind of it's AI in the sense of like Amazon recommending, next best product, or when they give you three things together when you're about to buy stuff, like, "Oh, customers bought this, also bought this." It's nice, but it's not like it's like it's almost like customers that expect that. So we've had that for some time, and we see lots of startups that are popping up where they have a single agent. The agent goes in and will look at all of your enterprise data and automatically set up the right policies and set up the right governance. And great, it's all fantastic stuff, but it doesn't matter if you can't take real-time action, right? Like that's the tension. Like this is all like good for IT and it's good for the administrators to set things up. But if you cannot act on it in real time, it doesn't matter because all it takes is one breach for all this to be useless. So that's why for us the focus is always, can we detect breaches? Can we stop breaches in real time on the identity side?
Got it. And do you
So
see yourself like getting into on the response side? The alerts coming from Okta and others, so sort of like L1, L2, but specifically focused on identity alerts.
yeah, I think there's an important distinction. So we already integrate to all the names I said. So and by integrate, I mean we're using shared signals framework to listen to risk signals from Zscaler, CrowdStrike, Trellix, Jamf, Netscope. So on the device level and at the network level and at the endpoint level, like we can absorb all those signals. And the real-time actions we can take are doing that session termination for if we see an infected session, basically to prevent the lateral movement, right? That's the piece we do. What we can also do is we can relay those signals and our own intelligence down. We can forward that to the SOC. So the SOC wants to take their own action based on that, or we can stream that into SIM or SOAR. And if they want to take an action based on that, great. But we are not that. We're not SIM. We're not SOAR. Like we're not getting into that game. That's a whole different industry, and more power to those guys. There's still plenty to do in identity. So we're kind of we're handling the identity side, the session side, the session termination, universal logout, and the more signals we ingest, the better. And the reason I say there's more to do identity, and we'll talk about in a second, is when you bring in agents into the mix. I mean, the identity risks just go through the roof when you think about AI agents. So we look at all the tools for the security operations center as partners, and we can stream them logs and events and whatever they're looking for, and it's a good partnership.
Got it. Um, and then switching gears a bit on the identity for AI, right? Palo Alto made a big deal about the whole M&A announcement, how everything is moving to agentic identity is the thing, right?
Hmm.
So I think we chatted a bit last time on that. So maybe can you just give us a status on? So I feel like
Sure.
this year, like the second half of 2025, is the year of the agents, right? So I keep saying this to everybody, is like, okay, anyone who is building an application right now, by default, it has some agents in it because it has AI in it and it has agent to it, right? So to me, like all of the applications from now till infinity will have agents, like similar to like
Yeah.
when we moved to the microservices architecture and Kubernetes, everybody started using microservices and Kubernetes, right? So now everybody will start using AI and agents, right? And I just looked at one of the companies that got funded recently, and one of the things that I keep wondering is like because you have this agent and then you have this IDP player, which is Okta, Microsoft, right? And then you have this third party come in and orchestrate. I just don't think how that's going to be feasible in near. I mean, I say this like 10 times, near real time because it's the same problem. Like I think even with the vector databases, I always thought that it's going to be very difficult to go to another third party site and get the answer and come back and like so here also you have to go to a so I mean I feel like that layer has to get somehow consumed in either the agentic part, like MCP layer, or it has to get consumed in the IDP layer. Otherwise, you just cannot have like three different layers trying to do this
Yeah.
in real time. So maybe we can just start with that.
Yeah. That's it's a very astute question. And you're right that 2025, not just second half 2025 and beyond
Yeah.
is going to be we're now officially in the era of agentic. It's what, we lived through internet and cloud and security and now this. Um, if you strip all the noise away, and we have a very clear belief and conviction, and this is actually the entire focus of Octane next year. So anybody watching this, if you can make it out to Vegas, we'll be demoing all this on stage next week. If not, check it out Octane online. This is literally the focus of Octane next week, which is Okta secures AI. That is the new positioning for the company. Like that's how we're thinking about the world. And there's a reason for that. There's a very technical reason for that. If you think about what is an agent or what is even an MCP server, inherently there's a model underneath it that is making some decisions based on an incoming command or prompt or task or alert that says, I need to then break it down into these different access requests to a database, to another SaaS application, to another agent, to some documents, to some files, whatever. I need to get data, I need to do some stuff, piece it back together, and then continue onwards. The thing is, in the days of when you and I were writing code, that was a program, right? That was deterministic. Even in the days of RPA, which is still now like what Automation Anywhere, UiPath, what those guys do, that's still deterministic. That's just a series of known actions that happen in response to a command. The thing with an agent is it's unpredictable. It is fundamentally non-deterministic, and it's also autonomous, meaning it's just going to run and do stuff, and the order in which it accesses your enterprise resources is unpredictable because it's all based on a model, and it's based on statistics. It's basically, based on this large 5,000 embedding model. It's a giant regression that says do this, this, this. We don't know in which order. So if you strip that further down, it's an access problem because in order for that access to work, the agent needs to have a token that basically says, I am able to access this downstream application to get certain data to do my job. And the reason tokens matter is then there's less steps that get in the way, and it's a low latency approach. So if you take out agent from this is fundamentally a privileged access problem. It's an access problem, right? And so you're right in that you don't want to disintermediate it. So our approach is very simple. We have a very clear point of view. We have real product that is shipping in like part of it is shipping in the next 20 days, and the rest of it is coming out in January. Our point of view is very simple. Every customer that we're talking to right now, we have 20,000 plus customers. Every single one of them is building some kind of an agent in-house because they know that it's existential. So half of our POV is, hey, if you're going to build an agent in-house, you need to embed certain security within that agent from the get-go. So it's a shift left in terms of agentic design. And what that security is that agent, the authentication chain needs to be validated. So if it's authenticating on behalf of a user, that should be a known user, or if it's an autonomous agent, it should trace back to an IT or some kind of a master account. Second thing, when you're building agents, you need to be able to vault your tokens because the not the that's what you said. You said it's either goes to IDP or the agent. It cannot go to the agent. It has to be in a low latency token vault, so that when the token exchange happens, the vault is where you store the tokens and you access them in real time because then you can enforce credential rotation and token policies on there. So that's the second thing you want to build. The third thing when you're building agents is creating the right human in the loop approaches to say, okay, before you're going to execute a sensitive transaction, check with the human that is responsible or you're acting on behalf of. And the last piece is when you're actually if the agentic model decides that it needs to use retrieval augmented generation, make sure that you're using fine-grained authorization to actually get deep into the data, but using the authorization guardrails of the user that you're acting on behalf of. So that's like part one of it. And then part two, which we're shipping in a couple months, is essentially bringing agents directly inside Okta into a single control plane. So agents right next to people and groups, but there's something very, very important. We're giving IT teams now the power to control exactly what that agent can access and at what level. That's why we introduced a new industry protocol called Cross App Access a couple months ago. Cross App Access is all about saying, hey, if the agent exposes all the system connections to IT can configure that. And it's we take that out of the hands of the end user and we take that hidden attack path and make it exposed. So This is a big, big, big deal for us. Like we have a huge amount of product investment going into this because for us, the world going forward is workforce, it's customer, and it's AI. And AI agents have, like from identity perspective, right? So there's classic workforce identity, there's CIAM, and then there's AI identity, and that requires a new way of doing things. And so notice I didn't say Okta, Auth0, I'm not using any of those names because when we think about it, it's a kind of a new approach for building that identity right and also managing it right within your organization. So um to answer your original question, whether it's an agent or an MCP, the what it connects to, how it connects, and the token exchange and token vaulting and token usage, that cannot be hidden inside the agent or MCP. That needs to be put into either the IDP or or token vault. That's the long and short of it. But it's a topic I'm very fired up about because it's literally going to change our whole industry like overnight. And so we're staying very ahead of this with all of our customers.
Right. So I think you touched a bit on the agents, right? And then there's also this concept of a AI employee, right?
Mhm.
So
Same thing though, same thing because at the end of the day, it's like either an assistant or an autonomous thing that has some level of decision making capacity based on all of his statistical training. What is an AI employee going to do? It's going to access stuff. It's going to go to calendar. It's going to go to CRM. It's going to go to the service system. It maybe goes to Workday. Maybe, it goes to the SAP to access invoices or whatever. It's just access. And so the like you almost got to think about with Okta, you get this single sign-on page for all the humans where you know exactly what you can access. What we're creating is a single sign-on page for agents and AI employees. They're all kind of in the same bucket. It's like a somewhat semi-smart thing that has a bunch of access. So we got to control that access.
got it.
Sorry, you were saying I cut you off. You're going. Go ahead.
No, no, I was saying that like agents are like like the the modules, right? But let's just say, like I think there's this debate going on about this browser bots and others, right? Like so let's just say it's either agents or employee, they are basically accessing like Salesforce on behalf of me. So I think the question I wanted to ask is like, so you guys are already orchestrating all of the human access to like Salesforce. Let's just say now
Hmm.
in an AI world, I go through a AI application that, so I never actually log into Salesforce, but now it happens through agents or employees or whatever. Like, how are you guys thinking in terms of like separating or changing or maybe thinking differently?
Yeah, so that's what I meant earlier. Like we're looking at even if an agent is acting on behalf of a user, and it's interesting. Just side note, what I'm spending a lot of time with customers right now in the field, like just learning use cases and understanding. There's way more scenarios of autonomous agents than there are of agents acting on behalf of. Like one of the most common use cases, the DevOps agent that is doing, the last mile of like linting and compiling and the CI/CD and like doing all that stuff. And that think of the access. It's accessing AWS and S3 buckets and Artifactory and Jira to close out the ticket. Like it's accessing all those things. That so the bigger point is autonomous agents, we're seeing that take off way more than on behalf of. But again, the way we think about it is, and really what we're hearing from customers is just give me a registry of agents. Just show me in one place, like start simple. Show me a list in one place of all the agents that are running right now. How many instances are active? Who's the ultimate owner? Who are the different users who have admin rights over this agent? What applications is this allowed to access? And can I configure that and can I revoke that access? And then the next request we're getting and we're building for this is you know, can I run an access certification campaign to see do I have agents that are zombie that we should have revoked the access but we never did? Show me all that and then give me a recommendation on should I keep it or not. So that's the kind of stuff that all this is stuff that we do for humans. We got to do the same exact thing for agents. So whether they're on behalf of or autonomous, whether you want to think of them as AI employees, and that's a metaphysical, philosophical question. I'm not going to get into whether they're human or not. But the how we treat them is we know how to treat them. We got to do this very similar stuff to humans. The only difference is the level of access that they get to downstream applications. That's way more based on token exchange. So there's a, and predefined scoped grants. That's the only difference because there's no login happening. It's like you've already defined, hey, this agent has read-only access to this part of Google Workspace. Okay, that's still active. Then you get an access token. Then you take that to the app, then you exchange that for access, and then you go into the app. That stuff still has to happen, right? It's kind of like OAuth 2 stuff, but instead of somebody logging in, it's done based on pre-configured access stuff. So that's what we're literally building and shipping very soon.
Got it. So one related question, right?
Hmm.
This intersection of identity and security, particularly, you guys have expanded into like some of the SSP and use cases also, right? But on the agent side, the things go hand in hand where, let's just say even if the hash of the agent changes, the functionality changes, and also some of it is also real time, like prompt in, prompt out, like, so there's a lot of, so previously it was like, you had humans and you trusted humans. I mean, that was a bad decision, but you trusted humans, right? But with agents, you need to pretty much monitor the agent software itself, like has it changed, has the functionality changed, and then also the usage, right? Like prompt in, prompt out, and that has to go hand in hand with the identity. Like, hey, should I really be
Yeah,
giving this permission, right? So can you talk about like,
I mean that's what I mean by access. So there's a whole component of AI security that we're not involved in, which is model poisoning and prompt injection. And there's a whole set of AI specific attacks. That's not our expertise. What is our expertise is, at the end of the day, a prompt, let's say it's a prompt-based agent, it still has to resolve to a set of tasks that need to happen and a set of resources that need to be accessed. What's the keyword? Accessed. So you can break it down into in response to a prompt, the agent in some unpredictable way, it's still going to resolve to a set of systems that and resources that need to be accessed. So if you can predetermine up what that access level is before the agent ever runs, and you do it when the agent is being like actually deployed in your system, that is a stopgap to ensure that the agent doesn't go crazy. Even if it decides to hallucinate and decides that I'm gonna, I need to access some other new system. If that access has never been configured, you just kill it. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. That's the point. That's why the access component needs to be decoupled from the agentic logic. And that's why the way we're doing that is just like SAML, like we've created a new standard or protocol to expose the access component and give that control to the IT and security teams. So then even if the agent goes nuts and does some hallucinatory stuff, or if somebody does a prompt injection attack and encodes in the prompt a bunch of malicious instructions and tries to get the agent to do something malicious, the access is where it stops. This is why, at the end of the day, if you strip away all the other stuff, agentic security is identity security. And that's why we're so bullish on like if you can get the identity access components and the fine grain authorization right for agents, you'll be good.
God,
Does that make sense? Like it all resolves into a series of tasks. It's like how it gets there is based on statistical model.
yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, it still has to access stuff to do something. That's what it is. It's access. So,
Yeah, I think my question was like, do you see any need to partner with a like a best of breed AI security, like an agentic security vendor? I mean, that would be, like with Okta versus Palo. Like Palo has a pretty deep stack on the AI agentic security. Like, do you guys have to own it, or do you guys have to partner it, or do you think you don't need it?
no, I mean, again, part of it is our conviction that like the agentic security stuff is ultimately going to resolve on the identity side of things, which is why we do have an upper hand there. The partnerships which we need and have already are with the agentic builder platforms themselves. So LangGraph, Vercel, Writer, like where people are actually creating agents. That's where we already are embedded, so that they can include those secure by design principles right when they're coding the agent itself. That's actually more important to us because we want to make sure that bad agents don't make their way into production in the first place.
got it. Um, anything else on like IGA? So there's a lot of bunch of IGA like a last mile, and you know you guys acquired Axiom for some of the permissioning, permissioning, right? Anything else you want to chime on that one?
Yeah, I think the that's really to help us. Like there were certain areas in terms. So if you go back to the identity security fabric, every identity type, every use case, every resource, what the Axiom acquisition helps us with, helps us with significantly is there were some last mile resources, Kubernetes, on-prem databases, which this just accelerates our ability to integrate into those and then execute, and help with the privilege access component of that. I think there's a lot of cool stuff with just-in-time access that we get as part of that acquisition as well. But it's it really is it really is to kind of help complete that vision of the identity security fabric. And whenever we look at the landscape of, build versus buy, and like we're always looking at, are we helping our customers again with all identity types? That's why the new one is agents. So we have to be really invested in that, all the different use cases. And so to fill out some of those use cases, that's where, for posture management, that's why we made the thinking around Spera, which is now ISPM. And then in terms of completing the resource set, that's a big reason why Axiom comes into the picture, is to help fill in accelerate some of those integrations with Kubernetes and databases and those things. So it's all guided by the same strategies to help deliver that fabric to every customer. And it's going to it's the strategy for the long run, basically.
Got it. Um, yeah, that's all I had. I think this was a really good
Cool.
conversation.
Good.
Anything else you want to touch on as a?
No, no, no. I just, for those who are watching, check out Octane if we got it next week. If you're there, great. I'll love to meet up with you. If not,
Yeah.
it's going to be online and streamed, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay. Thanks
All
a lot,
right.
and
Thank you.
good luck with Octane. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.